What if the most dangerous drug traffickers weren't smugglers, but the airport staff we trusted to protect us? At Heathrow Airport, baggage handlers and security managers turned their access into a multi-million-pound cocaine highway, right under the government's nose. Before we continue, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss shocking stories like this. Now let's get back to it. Heathrow Airport, one of the busiest and most secure airports in the world. Every day, more than 200,000 passengers pass through its terminals, while thousands of security cameras, scanners, and specially trained officers work around the clock to prevent illegal activity. Most people believe that airports like Heathrow are impenetrable fortresses, designed to catch even the smallest traces of wrongdoing. But what if I told you that the biggest threat to airport security wasn't coming from passengers, but from the very people hired to keep it safe? For years, a dangerous operation was unfolding right behind the scenes. While travelers were busy removing their shoes and placing laptops in trays, a secret drug pipeline was being built step by step, not by smugglers hiding packets in suitcases, but by insiders with full security clearance. Baggage handlers, airport workers, even managers, all using their uniforms like a shield to move millions of pounds worth of cocaine through restricted areas without a single alarm going off. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. It started small. A few suspicious packages arriving from South America marked as ordinary cargo. No one questioned them because the paperwork was perfect. Then came the bigger deliveries, sealed boxes that never touched public scanners. They moved from plane to van to warehouse with lightning efficiency, all controlled by people who knew every blind spot in the system. Even the police had no clue because the drugs never passed through regular checkpoints. They were entering the country through VIP access routes, the kind reserved for diplomats and airline crews. The entire operation was so sophisticated that investigators later said one shocking thing. If this network hadn't been exposed when it was, Heathrow could have become the UK's largest drug gateway in history. But the real twist wasn't how they smuggled the cocaine. It was who was leading the operation from inside. While African folktales began as fireside stories shared by elders to guide children, their influence has quietly spread far beyond village boundaries. Today, many popular movies, animations, and even superhero characters carry the same moral structure and symbolic elements found in traditional African storytelling. The trickster character of Anansi the Spider, for example, has inspired clever antiheroes in cartoons and comic books across the world. Similarly, tales of animal kingdoms, where lions rule with pride and hyenas sneak with mischief, have shaped modern franchises like The Lion King, which mirrors themes from Masa and Swahili folklore. Yet the true power of African folktales isn't just in entertainment. It lies in how they teach resilience, wisdom, and community values without lecturing. Each character, whether human or animal, is a walking lesson. A greedy hyena reminds us about the dangers of selfishness. A brave but humble tortoise proves intelligence can defeat brute strength. Even supernatural beings like Mami Wata, the river spirit, embody warnings about temptation and respect for the unseen forces of nature. In recent years, African writers, filmmakers, and animators have begun reclaiming these stories, retelling them with modern twists. Children's books now reintroduce ancient proverbs with colorful illustrations, while African fantasy novels blend folklore with futuristic settings. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok are filled with narrators bringing these tales back to life through dramatic voiceovers and minimal animations. What once required a village fire can now reach millions through a smartphone screen. But the real magic happens when listeners relate these stories to their own lives. A child in Ghana, a teenager in America, or a grandmother in Pakistan may all hear the same story and find a different lesson hidden within. That is the timeless charm of African folk tales. They do not belong to one tribe, one religion, or one continent. They are universal mirrors, showing us who we are and who we could become. In a world filled with high-speed internet, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality, one might wonder, do old village tales still matter? The answer is a powerful yes. African folktales endure because they offer something technology cannot: human connection, ancestral wisdom, and cultural identity. These stories are more than entertainment. They act as moral compasses. Long before textbooks existed, folktales taught children how to behave, respect elders, share resources, and solve conflicts. Today's world faces new challenges: loneliness, greed, social division. But the lessons remain the same. Tales like that of the boy who cried leopard remind us about honesty. Stories of Queen Yaa teach bravery and leadership. Even comical tricksters like Anansi show how intelligence can challenge authority without violence. Beyond morals, these tales hold historical and spiritual value. Many African communities see storytelling as a sacred duty, a bridge between the living and ancestors. When a tale begins with Kwaku Anansi or Pokwa, listeners instantly feel part of an ancient chain stretching across generations. In diaspora communities, from the Caribbean to America, these folktales help people reconnect with lost roots. Furthermore, African folktales offer alternative worldviews. Unlike Western stories that often focus on one hero, African tales emphasize community over individuality. Victories are shared, wisdom is collective, and even animals participate in society. This teaches empathy and unity, values desperately needed in today's divided world. Most importantly, African folktales empower imagination. Without fancy visuals or special effects, listeners are encouraged to picture the scenes in their minds. A talking lion becomes real not through animation, but through rhythm, tone, and belief. This strengthens creativity and listening skills, abilities modern children often lose to screen addiction. In short, African folktales survive not despite modern times, but because of them. As people search for authenticity and meaning, these ancient stories rise again, this time traveling through podcasts, classrooms, bedtime apps, and global stages. They remind us that no matter how advanced the world becomes, wisdom often comes wrapped in the simplest of tales. African folktales were never meant to be read silently in books. They were performed. In most communities, storytelling took place at night when dinner was done and the fire was warm. Children gathered around the elders, sitting in circles, their faces glowing in the flickering light. The storyteller didn't just speak, they acted, sang, danced, and changed voices for every character. One moment they were a roaring lion, the next a timid turtle. Storytelling was more than talent, it was a sacred responsibility. In many cultures, the title of griot, or keeper of stories, was an honored position. Griots carried the history of the community in their memory. They knew songs of past kings, tales of ancestral wars, and the origins of every clan. Forgetting a story was considered disrespectful to the ancestors, so storytellers trained for years to master rhythm, voice projection, and improvisation. Before a story began, there was often a call and response ritual to grab attention. A storyteller might shout, "Pokwa," and the audience would respond, "Pakawa," which means we are ready to listen. In Ghana, someone would cry, "Anansem," and the crowd would answer, "Yebeka, we shall tell it." This made the audience active participants, not silent listeners. Music and instruments were also part of the performance. Drums, rattles, and clapping added suspense or celebration at key moments. If a lion entered the story, the drums would thunder. If a trickster succeeded, laughter and cheers would break out. The tale lived in sound, movement, and emotion, not just words. Even more fascinating, storytellers adapted their tales depending on who was listening. If the audience was mostly children, the moral was soft and playful. If adults were present, deeper meanings about betrayal, greed, or leadership were included. No two performances were ever the same. Each telling was alive, breathing with the energy of the people. In essence, African folktales weren't just heard, they were experienced. And that living tradition is what made them unforgettable. One of the most captivating aspects of African folktales is the unforgettable cast of characters that appear again and again across different regions and generations. These figures, whether human, animal, or spirit, are more than fictional creations. They represent virtues, flaws, and survival strategies of real-life communities. Among them, animal tricksters are the most popular. Perhaps the most famous of all is Anansi the spider, beloved in West Africa and the Caribbean. Though small and physically weak, Anansi uses intelligence, humor, and cunning to outsmart much stronger opponents like leopards, elephants, or even the sky god. He is selfish at times, greedy at others, but always clever. Anansi teaches that wisdom can defeat strength, and that a person doesn't need power to win, only strategy. In southern Africa, a similar character exists, the tortoise, known as Igel or Tingi Tingi. Slow but wise, he often tricks faster animals through patience and careful planning. His message is clear, steady thinking beats rushing. Then comes the hare, another trickster known widely across East Africa. The hare is witty and mischievous, sometimes a hero, sometimes a troublemaker. Like humans, he is full of contradictions. But not all characters are cunning. Some are symbols of strength or leadership. The lion, called Simba or Shumba, is often portrayed as the king, commanding respect and order. The elephant represents wisdom and memory, while the hyena is commonly greedy and foolish, a warning against selfishness. African folktales also feature magical beings, talking drums, flying gourds, shape-shifting spirits, showing how deeply spiritual life once was. Even nature was alive. Rivers could get angry, mountains could whisper warnings, and trees could offer guidance. What makes these characters timeless is how relatable they are. Every person knows an Anansi, someone clever but sneaky. Everyone has met a lion, strong but proud. These figures act as mirrors of society, allowing people to laugh at their own weaknesses without shame. And remarkably, these same characters have crossed oceans, finding their way into modern cartoons, children's books, and even Hollywood films, proving that legends never die, they simply evolve. For centuries, African folktales flourished through oral tradition. But then came a time when everything almost collapsed. With colonization, forced education systems, and rapid modernization, storytelling circles grew silent. Children were told to speak English, French, or Portuguese instead of their native languages. Fireplaces were replaced by radios, radios replaced by televisions, and soon, televisions were replaced by smartphones. The griot's voice grew faint. What was once a sacred tradition was now considered old-fashioned. Many young Africans began seeing folktales as village stories for illiterate people. Schools taught European fables but ignored African legends. A whole cultural treasure was on the edge of being forgotten. But then something unexpected happened. Just when it seemed like these stories would vanish forever, they found new life in places no one expected. African writers like Chinua Achebe, Ama Ata Aidoo, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o began publishing folktale-inspired novels that gained global attention. Musicians sampled Anansi stories in reggae, Afrobeat, and hip-hop lyrics. Filmmakers adapted trickster tales into animations. Even major companies like Marvel Studios took inspiration from African mythology, and then Black Panther exploded into theaters. Suddenly, people all around the world were saying, "Wait, African stories are powerful." Social media did the rest. Storytellers on TikTok, YouTube, and podcasts began narrating folktales in dramatic style, mixing traditional rhythm with modern sound effects. Apps were created to teach parents how to share bedtime stories from their roots. In classrooms from Lagos to London, teachers reintroduced Anansi, the lion, and the tortoise not as folklore, but as heroes of wisdom. The world finally realized something Africa had always known. Stories are not just entertainment, they are survival. That was the turning point. From the edge of extinction, African folktales rose again, stronger, louder, global. Now that African folktales have risen from near extinction, the question remains, what happens next? Will they fade again, or will they evolve into something even more powerful? The answer lies in how we choose to carry them forward. And today, the torch is no longer just in the hands of village elders. It is being held by artists, parents, educators, animators, gamers, and even artificial intelligence. Modern creators are breathing new life into ancient stories. Imagine Anansi in a video game, outsmarting virtual giants. Imagine the tortoise in a 3D animated movie, teaching patience to millions of children worldwide. Imagine African superheroes in comic books and metaverse worlds, inspired not by Western capes, but by ancestral magic and animal wisdom. This is already happening. Schools are reviving storytelling clubs. Parents are telling bedtime stories in their native languages again. African illustrators are publishing vibrant folktale books, and global streaming platforms are seeking authentic cultural content more than ever before. But perhaps the most exciting change is how children themselves are becoming storytellers. With smartphones, voice recorders, and AI tools, even a 10-year-old can retell a legend in their own creative style, mixing beats, visuals, and modern slang. The same tales once told around the fire are now traveling through Wi-Fi, podcasts, reels, and animations. Yet one thing must never change: the heart of these stories. No matter the medium, African folktales must continue to teach kindness over cruelty, wisdom over muscle, patience over arrogance, and community over ego. Because in a world full of division and digital distraction, these stories remind us of something deeply human. We are not just individuals, we are part of a legacy. And as long as one child listens and one storyteller speaks, the flame will never die. The future of African folktales is not behind us. It is unfolding right now. And you, the listener, are part of that story. At their core, African folktales are not just stories, they are medicine for the soul. In a world where people feel more disconnected than ever, these tales remind us of something essential. We belong to something bigger than ourselves. Psychologists today talk endlessly about the importance of identity, emotional resilience, and empathy. But long before modern science, African storytellers had already mastered these principles. A child who heard the story of the greedy hyena learned self-control. A listener who followed Anansi's foolish plans learned to think before acting. A tale about the kind elephant quietly taught compassion. Without punishment or lectures, these stories shaped stronger minds and softer hearts. Even more beautifully, folktales created unity. When a storyteller spoke, everyone listened, the young, the old, the rich, the poor. For that moment, all differences vanished. Laughter and suspense flowed through the entire crowd like shared electricity. Today, social media divides people into opinions and categories, but folktales do the opposite. They remind us that we all feel fear, joy, jealousy, hope, no matter who we are. Spiritually, these tales also reconnect us with nature. In African tradition, animals, trees, rivers, and stars are not decorations. They are characters with purpose. A river can be a mother. A mountain can be a guardian. This worldview teaches environmental respect in a way no campaign or poster can. If a child grows up believing the forest has feelings, they will never burn it without thought. In the end, African folktales are more than entertainment. They are therapy, education, spiritual guidance, and ancestral connection, all woven into simple, unforgettable tales. So the next time someone says, "It's just a story," remember this. Stories build nations. Stories heal generations. Stories make us human. And as long as even one tale survives, humanity will never be truly lost.